did you notice that the gospel reading seemed to end a bit abruptly? When I read it the first time, I went, they forgot a verse. What about the bit about love? So I read a couple of different versions to see if, because sometimes the verse numbers are massaged depending on your version. No, they forgot it. I'm thinking, how am I supposed to preach on this? They forgot the tagline. Isn't everything about love? So I thought I'd have a look. Actually, I was called away because I kind of got into the middle of this and thought, I don't know what's going on. And I hadn't even got my head around it. And then I was called away for a couple of hours. And then I came back and I read everything again because my brain had all fallen out and I hadn't remembered. So I read everything again. And I kept reading Luke's gospel and thought, it should go have 2 more verses. I'll just add them in. They won't know. But I didn't. You'll notice I didn't add them in. Anyway, I looked forward into the lectionary and I had a look at next week's readings. And there they are right at the beginning of next week's readings. So I had to think about these 2 verses. I'll read them to you. The 2 verses are, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you." That's the last 2 verses that we didn't get, or the first 2 verses of next week's gospel. So you know what kind of sermon you're getting next week, hey? So then I thought, I'll just write one big sermon and split it in 2 and give you half this week and half next week. Well, I've had COVID and my brain doesn't work that well, so that didn't happen. And I thought, even underneath the reading, that tone or thrust of love, gospel, Jesus-given, divine love is still there. It's what it's all about. And I don't mean, Valentine's Day tomorrow kind of love, but that sacrificial, divine, God-inspired love. You know that question you ask yourself when you find yourself trying to decide which way to go. What would Jesus do? And why do we ask that question? What would Jesus do? WWJD. Remember there used to be bracelets with that. You could wear it. WWJD. Because when you ask what Jesus would do, you automatically err on the side of love. So I wondered how to preach this sermon without the tagline. So I thought I'd bust it open a little bit for you. Luke's Sermon on the Plain, as this is known, his Sermon on the Plain, introduces Luke's version of the Beatitudes. Blessings. Beatitudes means blessings. But Luke goes one step further than Matthew, whom it corresponds with. So Matthew has a Beatitudes and Luke has them. Luke goes a little bit further in that he counters his blessings with warnings or woes. Recently in social media, there's been some cartoons and memes floating around with Bishop Michael Curry's words. And he says, if it's not about love, then it's not about God. If it's not about love, it's not about God. It's catchy and punchy, and I thought it was a great place to start. But it's also revolutionary, especially for those out there that don't know God and don't know what it is we strive to be and do. If it's not about love, it's not about God. I actually think he said if it ain't about love, it ain't about God. But they've kind of, prettied the English language up for it. This revolutionary thought is countercultural. Countercultural to the masses who are not Christian, who don't come to church every week, who don't understand the gospel of love. If love, particularly sacrificial love, informed everything, most of the other stuff we sweat wouldn't matter. Because love would already have discounted them. And I'll give you an illustration. There's a person driving a car and someone else pulls out in front of them. What's your first response? Be honest in your head. But if love was your first response, like literally the first response, you wouldn't get angry. You wouldn't chase them down the street, scaring the bajinkies out of them. You wouldn't even lean out and abuse them or make some smart quip. Love would mean you'd take a deep cleansing breath, excuse their perhaps inadvertent behaviour, and get on with your day and not worry about it again. What about from the other perspective? What if you're the one in front? Your child's just been diagnosed with cancer. What does it mean? How will they cope? How will life change? Ask yourself. And then you go, oh God, I've just cut that person off. Concentrate, woman, concentrate. You're going to kill someone or yourself. And you kind of throw out, I'm sorry, into your car. No one can hear it. You sort of lamely wave to the person that you pulled out on while you continue to go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry. And love means that you noticed you cut off this person before you ended up dead. And you throw the apology out into the car even though that person will never hear it. Love means you don't both end up stressed and upset. And the day can go on and life can settle down. But that kind of love's hard to achieve. That's why I use the car, because we all just ramp straight to, and then we think, then we breathe, then we realise. Everything has a response and a reaction, and love is no different. This week our gospel reading asks us to think about the stuff we just do without thinking. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it does. It asks us to think about the stuff we do without really thinking. To think about how we are blessed through poverty, grief, hunger, and rejection. And how we are warned that if we don't heed them, then we will actually experience poverty, grief, hunger, and rejection. And at first glance, a bit like the car pulling out in front of you, they don't seem like blessings at all. How can you be blessed by being poor? How can you be blessed by forgiving that bad driver who nearly killed you? Luke's version of the Beatitudes are tempered with these warnings which illustrate the both and tone for life, for all of our life. Luke's Sermon on the Plain, which is remarkably similar to Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, offers balance and a different focus than Matthew's version of the Beatitudes. Matthew preaches on the mountain and Luke preaches on the plain. Matthew's sermon is to card-carrying Jews mostly, and Luke, we're told, speaks to everyone, from Tyre and Sidon, Gentiles, Pharisees, scribes, everyone. Matthew expounds his blessings and makes them very specific. Matthew said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." Luke says, "Blessed are the poor." Matthew says, "Blessed are the hungry in spirit." Luke says, "Blessed are the hungry." Full stop. In Matthew, the spiritually hungry or the spiritually poor are admonished. In Luke, they're not. They're just very simple. But it's hard to grasp. What does it mean when Luke tempers them with warnings and says, "Woe to you who are full. You've had your lot. Woe to you who are rich. You've got it all already." What does that mean? Does that mean in our 21st century ears that I've worked hard all my life? I've saved my money. I've planned for my retirement. Is that wrong? Because by society standards I'm rich. I'm quite clearly well fed and not hungry. And I work hard on my reputation. I want people to think well of me. So am I cursed because of these things? I think it's a yes and a no. I think it's a both and. Blessed are the poor. Why are they blessed? Because they're poor? I remember being that person who was poor, and I can tell you right now, I didn't feel blessed at the time. I didn't feel blessed the first time I had to front up at a charity and ask for a handout so that my kids could eat. It was one of the most humiliating things that ever happened. And I definitely didn't feel blessed the day I wore a pair of threadbare pants to the supermarket and a woman came up behind me and said, "Your pants are ripped." So I was so embarrassed, to the point where it was 20 years before I went back to that shopping centre again. Didn't feel blessed at all. But pain and experience are powerful teachers. And you always have a choice with whatever life throws at you. These things teach us what it means to want and to need and to accept and to give choices to ourselves and to others. The blessings are the lessons. Being poor taught me to allow others the blessing of helping. These others derived great satisfaction in helping us. Their Christian love and their Christian spirit was expressed in their giving to me and our family. And I am blessed because I now have great empathy for those who front up at the pantry looking for help, even the ones who play the system to get by. And I am blessed when I recognise myself and my former life in someone who is just as mortified as I was to ask for help. These folk need to feel Christ's love in the warmth of our smile and in the acceptance of our hearts, even though they don't know that's what they're experiencing. You know, and they know something. There is a woman who came to us over a year ago. She was really down on her luck. She was definitely not feeling blessed. She was very pregnant. She had other children at school. She had a difficult partner, no money, not much hope, and was at the end of her rope. You could see it in her face. You know what that looks like. She was in a hole. There was no money, lots of bills, relationship problems, loads of stress, and a baby on top of everything. She was so low. And all we did was feed her. We gave her food. And we told her she could come back again and again and again. No questions. Come back as often as you need. We made sure we talked to her. We made sure we saw her and listened to her. In fact, the very least thing we did for her was to feed her. But this love was the catalyst for blessing. We loved her and tried not to judge. I recognised myself and my previous life in hers. I also recognised the blessing of connection and relationship, and not as you might think, not between her and me, but between her and another in the pantry, a volunteer. And I recognise God's love in the mix. And she was blessed. And we are so very blessed by this one encounter. Our blessings through this are great. 18 months down the track, she's in a better place. She volunteers here twice a month, once at Pandora's and once in the pantry. She gives us what she can. Little bits she gleans from other places, from other people. I know who can use that, she says, and she brings it to us. She needs to give back. She needs to pay it forward. She needs to pass on the blessings that she received from others, even as she doesn't realise that that's what she's doing. Her experience means she feels compelled to show others the same love, the same acceptance, the same blessings that she received. She will most likely never sit in one of these pews on a Sunday. And she is still poor by comparison to how rich we are. And we are also very blessed by our relationship. Because if it's not about love, then it's not about God. Think about that the next time something happens in front of you and you have a choice on how to react. When you're driving, when someone speaks to you, when someone is down on their luck, when you pass a homeless person. To finish, I'll give you another cliche, which is still highly relevant. You never know the impact you have on another's life. You can never know the impact. It's true. You will never know how you bless another simply because of who you are, of how you react or didn't, or behaved or didn't. If you choose to offer love, you can't go wrong. Even if that love is thrown back at you or spat in your face, you still gave it away, which is the only truth that you're asked to do. And maybe we'll go back to the 70s and ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? I guarantee you, Jesus would always choose love. Always.